Hi Chrissie, thanks for joining us. So you are the founder of a business and legal consultancy, and you were saying that you're focusing a lot on cultural change at the moment and operational change. So the theme of today's event obviously has been around mentorship and diversity and inclusion. So what are the kind of key bits of advice that you would give any client going into, say they don't have a mentorship program or they don't have anything in place yet, processes, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think mentoring, it can mean whatever you want it to mean. I think some larger businesses have really sophisticated mentoring programs in place that have very structured processes, but also mentoring can start with something very, very simple. A very simple mentoring scheme would be something like, sending simple email around a small team and saying, are you interested in having a mentor, matching mentors and mentees with junior and senior members of staff, either sort of senior, junior or reverse mentoring. Junior, senior can be really, really impactful as well. I've seen companies who have implemented that scheme, which actually it empowers the junior employees and it also teaches the senior employees something about what's going on in the ground and something about what the kind of, what the culture is like, perhaps in a different part of the company and a different part of society as well, because there are now, we've got companies who are spanning 5 generations across their employee cohort, and actually having that reverse mentoring can really help the seniors understand a little bit more about their junior end of staff as well.
Definitely. I think I have a marketing background, and as in the marketing profession, as you get older and older, the new technologies coming in are being learned at universities now, and I wasn't taught them at university, for example. So I definitely think there's a big place for reverse mentorship, for sure. I think also, as you touched on, it can be a very simple mentorship program, and I often think sometimes companies don't implement them because they feel like it needs to be this big deal. So definitely, I think I'm just chatting right now, and this is like, okay, we're gonna have to cut that out. Don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Okay, different question. I'm at a loss here.
I think there are benefits to working with companies like Grow as well, who already have those procedures in place and they already know exactly what they're doing and how to match mentors and mentees as well. And they've got, they're really good at finding people with commonalities who build really, really long-lasting relationships. And we've seen some great examples of that at the event today with Faika, who's a brilliant example of a mentee that's come through the program. And I think when you get people who are really well matched, that obviously builds relationships not just from a professional context but also from personal friendship context as well. My long-term mentor actually is now my biggest client. So when I became self-employed, someone who had mentored me throughout my whole junior career journey is now a client. So that's obviously carried through and has been hugely instrumental for me, and was one of the major reasons I was able to start my own business, because I knew he was already on board. So that just shows kind of the power of mentoring. It was almost one of those kind of key moments. If I didn't have that, I'm not sure I would have been quite as able to just take the plunge and start my own business if I didn't kind of have that client there, and that's because of the mentoring relationship that we had.
Do you feel like the pandemic has helped with mentorship programs because of the culture change in terms of working from home and Zoom and Teams and the technology that kind of allows you to have mentors in different offices and different locations, or different locations?
Definitely, yeah. I think during lockdown, I think people felt more disconnected from each other and wanted to build those connections, and actually mentoring was a great way of achieving that.
Yeah.
And people also, at least at the beginning, kind of felt like they had a little bit more time because they didn't have the commute and they were taking lots of things out of their days, and obviously they didn't have social lives to go to and extracurricular activities. So I think people felt like they wanted to build that connection. They had more time to do it. Obviously video platforms took off, so they had the means to do it, and I think that built a lot of really meaningful relationships during that time, and that has now sort of carried in to future years, because even though now we are sort of back to normal life, I think people really took value from those connections that were made during lockdown. So we're seeing more and more of it now, and actually most businesses that I work with do have some kind of mentoring scheme, whether it's working with an external provider or whether it's just something very basic internally. And most companies are seeing huge amounts of benefit from that in terms of kind of employee morale, in terms of culture, in terms of employee engagement, because it really engages both sides of the relationship, both the mentee and the mentor, I think both get a huge amount out of that connection. It's not just about kind of the mentee taking and the mentor giving, actually it's a mutual relationship, and both gain a huge amount from it.
And would you advise clients to join external networks, such as Grow, such as the Emirates Legal Network? Would that be something that you advise when you're going in? You don't have to keep it so in-house. There are these other networks and things that people can join.
Absolutely. I mean, that's hugely beneficial from a kind of diversity and inclusion point of view, to work with people outside of the organisation, because sometimes you can get a little bit kind of, you can get lost in your own network and your own dynamic, and actually really, really beneficial to bring people in who've worked with different companies, different types of companies, from startups to larger companies, with more diverse people from more diverse backgrounds, different cultures, different countries. That's really the benefit and the core of diversity, is to have people who span a wide range of professions as well, people who've had different professional experiences. So I think it's massively beneficial to widen the network beyond just the company, so you can kind of bring those perspectives in.
And say you're just starting off in your career, and you would like a mentor, but maybe the people directly around you don't feel comfortable asking, or you're part of a global firm, so there are the resources there. I guess, what would the advice be to someone to feel confident reaching out to people in other jurisdictions, or what would be the best way for them to kind of seek a mentor out?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, get in touch with organisations like Grow, and to kind of build that external network. That's exactly what they're there for, is to match people with people outside of their organisation who have different experiences. But also, actually, if you don't want to go through an organisation, you could also just reach out to people through LinkedIn. I get DMs from people all the time asking if I'll mentor them. Obviously, sadly, I can't take on all of them because I don't have all the time in the world, even though I wish I could. But actually, that is a very simple way of just reaching out to people. And it doesn't have to be, a signed agreement about mentorship. It can just be someone who you have a monthly Zoom call with, just to catch up. And that can be really, really valuable, which is how my mentor and I really started out. It wasn't a formal mentoring relationship, but we had, Zoom calls pretty regularly, which kind of turned into us mentoring each other, and that's kind of how we ended up then working together ultimately. So yes, it doesn't have to be, but actually, organisations like Grow really know what they're doing, and they've got access to great networks and people who also want to mentor as well. So you kind of you know what you're going to get through those sorts of organisations. You know how valuable they're going to be. So there's lots of different ways to do it, definitely, and lots of benefit to be gained.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.